Hello lovely people, welcome to Stella's Yarn Universe. In this crochet tutorial I will make this European robin with you. Before we get started, I just want to mention real quickly that I have a matching written pattern with many step-by-step photos of the process available on Etsy and Ravelry, and an interactive version on Ribla. This new updated pattern is also included in several of my pattern bundles. One is a new one. I just put together the Winter Magic pattern bundle, so you can find that on Etsy. I'll link to it below. This way you save a lot if you want to create lots of winter magic this season. And those of you who are new here, welcome. You may want to head straight to the instructions, which you can also find in the description box. There are timestamps starting with the materials and tools sections. If you've been subscribed to the channel for a while, first of all, thank you so much. I just want to explain real quickly, because I'm sure you do remember that I have an older version of this video tutorial, and so just wanted to explain to you that I made a third version of the robin. The first one is the one in the video tutorial, that's quite old by now, and then the second one is the PDF pattern that I made, so they don't match up. That's one reason I wanted to create a new one that would match, so that you can work with the written pattern alongside the video if that's what you like to do. And also a few of you mentioned that the color changes, that the red chest doesn't look quite right, and I believe that was mainly due to it not being symmetrical. And it's always a bit of a challenge to get it perfectly symmetrical, because we work in a continuous spiral when crocheting amigurumi, but I tried to get it as symmetrical as possible with this version, so I hope it will work nicely for you as well, and that's why I made this update. And I do want to let you know, if you purchased the previous version of the pattern, you can email me at stellasyanuniverse@outlook.com, sending any proof that you purchased the pattern. If it's very long ago and you don't have any email or anything, you could also take a screenshot of one of the pages of the pattern, and I will know and send you the updated version. So with all that being said, let's get to crocheting. So for this project we need yarn in 4 different colors. This is Scheepjes Catona, which is a 4-ply or fingering or sports weight yarn, or size 2. But you could also use DK or light worsted weight yarn, size 3, in combination with a 2.5 millimeter hook that's closest to a C2. You could also use a B1 depending on how tightly you crochet. If you crochet quite loosely, I recommend a B1, otherwise a C2 should be fine. And we need light brown, then like a rusty red for the chest, gray. The gray I'm using is quite dark, you may want to use lighter one, and then a natural white. If you want to know the exact shades that I used, I listed them in the description box. And then we need some Fiberfill and a yarn needle, a stitch marker, a few pins, and I ran out of safety eyes. If you want, you may want to use 5 millimeter safety eyes. That's what I used for this little birdie here. But this time I'm going to embroider the eyes with black embroidery floss. So if you prefer that, you can follow along with me. And for that I also need a darning needle or a large-eyed sewing needle, and Then for the feet, I'm using this 1 millimeter thick aluminium craft wire. I used to live in the UK, so you may pronounce it differently. But the gauge is AWG18. And to shape the wire, I have this these pliers. They are optional. You can also shape them with your fingers, but they are very helpful. So you may want some like these, or even smaller ones like these for jewelry making. Flat ones are better, but use whatever you have. Even the round ones work. And then something to cut the wire. And you can also crochet the feet. I will show you how in case you don't want to use wire. In this case, your little robin won't stand, but yeah, it's still very cute, and you can sit it somewhere in a nest, or you could hang it in a tree. So that's all the materials we need. And so without further ado, let's get crocheting. So we start with a light brown yarn, and we begin with a magic ring. So just use your preferred magic ring method. And then in round 1, we make 6 single crochet in the magic ring. Then before closing the magic ring, you can actually place a stitch marker in the first stitch just to keep it wide enough to easily crochet into for round 2. And then in round 2, we make 6 increases. So 2 single crochet in each stitch, and I'm using V stitches for this tutorial. In the written pattern I used yarn under and more X-shaped stitches. I just wanted to see the difference. Otherwise I'm trying to use the same tension and I'm using the same materials. That's just another question I received recently. I just want to make sure that the difference isn't too big. Now we have a round of 12 stitches, closing the ring a bit more. And I place a stitch marker in my last stitch. And in round 3, we make 1 single crochet. And an increase. And we repeat this 5 more times, 6 times in total. 1 single crochet and 1 increase. And please excuse any noise. I have a whole new setup here and I'm in a new place and I don't know people's schedule yet, so I just go with the flow and see if it works today. And hopefully the outside noises don't bother you too much. And we finish with an increase, and now we have a stitch count of 18. So now we start joining the red yarn, and so we have 1 single crochet in brown in the beginning of the round, so that's what we start with. And we already chained 2 red so that we can start the next single crochet in red. So dropping the brown and pulling a loop through the 2 brown loops on my hook, giving this a little pull. And now we have the red joined. So here we have 2 different options. We can work the brown yarn into the red stitches and then switch and work the red yarn into the brown stitches. But if that's all a bit too complicated, you could also fasten off every time there's a color change and then tie the ends together inside the bird, and then the ends kind of serve as a part of the filling. So that's an alternative version, but I will show you how to work the other yarn color into the stitches, and at times we will have 2 colors that we don't use, but I will guide you through it. So next we have 4 single crochet in red, and so now we insert our hook in the next stitch and go under the light brown yarn, and then pick up the red yarn and pull it through underneath the light brown, and then pull it through the stitch. So now we have 2 loops on our hook, and now we go over the light brown yarn to pick up the red and pull it through the 2 loops. And this way we have our first red stitch and the light brown yarn is worked into it. So again with the next stitch we go through, and underneath the light brown yarn we pick up the red and pull it through underneath the light brown, pull it through the stitch. Here are 2 loops, and then we go over the light brown yarn to pick up the red yarn and pull it through the 2 loops. So this is how it works. Now we have 2 more single crochet. And then we have an increase. So 2 single crochet in the same stitch, and now we have 4 more single crochet in red. One, 2, 3, And with the fourth one, we'll change to brown. But first, I want to mention that it's a good idea to give the yarn that you've worked into the stitches a little tug. Don't pull too tightly, just enough so that it doesn't show through in between the stitches. And you don't want it to influence the shape of the amigurumi, so yeah, not too much, just enough. And as soon as there's resistance, just leave it, and that will be the right amount. So now we make the last red stitch. So we pick up the red yarn, pull it through, and then pick up the light brown yarn and pull it through. And now we switch color. And so how you hold the yarn can also be different. You may prefer to hold it like this with just the working yarn there and the one that you're working into the stitches. You can just lay over the stitches like this. For me, it's easier to have them both over my index finger, and I separate them. I was going to say knuckle, but I don't know. You know what I mean. So now we have one single crochet in brown, and this time we work the red yarn into it. So we pick up the brown yarn, pull it through underneath the red, pull it through the stitch, and we have 2 loops on our hook, and we go over it, pick up the brown yarn, pull it through the 2 loops. Same thing. So then we have an increase, and then we have 5 single crochet. And then in the last stitch we have an increase. And now is a good time to give the red yarn a little pull again. That's it. So we have a stitch count of 21 now. In round 5 we start with 1 single crochet in brown again, and we change to red, and then we have 2 single crochet. And an increase, and 6 single crochet. And an increase. So that's 1 single crochet. Now before making the second one in the same stitch, I'm going to give the brown yarn a pull, and now I make the second single crochet in the same stitch to complete the increase and change to brown at the same time. So now brown goes on top again, and next we have 6 single crochet in brown. have an increase. And we finish with 3 single crochet. So now we have a stitch count of 24, and it's a good time to give the red yarn a pull. In round 6 we start with a brown single crochet again, but then we join the gray yarn. So here it gets interesting with 3 colors at a time. So I just have my gray yarn ready here, and so we make 1 single crochet in brown, but we finish it in gray. So I'll just pull a gray loop through the 2 brown loops, and that's the first single crochet done. Now we only have a 1 single crochet in gray for this round. There's going to be another one on the other side, but 1 at a time, I mean. And so we make 1 single crochet now. I'm going around both of these yarns, but at the same time changing to red. So for this, we go through the next stitch, the first red one here, and we go underneath the red and brown yarn, pick up the gray yarn, pull it through, at the same time holding on to the end here so we don't lose that. And then we pick up the red yarn and pull it through the 2 gray loops. So this way we have this 1 gray stitch here. And now red goes on top, and gray and brown go underneath, or like I explained before, you could just lay the red yarn over your finger and then have the others close to the stitches. So next we have 5 single crochet in red, and so now we work around both yarn colors that we're not using. Then we have an increase, and 4 single crochet. And with the 4th we're changing to gray, so I'm just giving the brown and gray yarn a little tug, and then we make the 4th single crochet starting with red, and then we pick up the gray yarn and put it through the 2 red loops. So now we briefly have gray on top, and we make again 1 single crochet in gray. So in this last red stitch here we make a gray one, pulling the gray yarn through, but then changing to brown. So we pick up the brown yarn and put it through the 2 gray loops, and now we have our gray stitch here, and now brown goes on top for the remaining stitches of the round. And so we start with 2 single crochet, and then we have an increase, and then we make 7 single crochet, and we finish the round. In the last stitch we have an increase, and the next round will begin with gray. So we make one single crochet completely in brown, and then the second one that goes in the same stitch we change to gray. And before, you may want to pull the red and gray yarn just to make sure that it doesn't show through the brown stitches. And that's the round done. So now we have a stitch count of 27. In round 7 we start with 3 single crochet in gray, and with the third one we can change to red. Then we have 1 single crochet in red, and increase, and then 8 single crochet, and with the 8th one we'll change to gray, so giving this a little tug. And you'll note that here the first gray stitch goes into the existing gray stitch. So then we increase in the next stitch in this gray one here, the existing gray one, and we single crochet in the next, and we change to brown. So that's our 3 gray stitches on this side. And then we have 7 single crochet, then an increase, oh, so you got that, and then we finish the round with 4 single crochet. And with the last one we change to gray again. And now we have a stitch count of 30. In round 8 we start with 4 gray single crochet. Changing to red in the 4th. 5 single crochet, and an increase, and then again 5 single crochet, changing to gray in the 5th, which goes here in the first existing gray stitch. So that's intended to make up for the shift that's due to the working in the spiral. And then we have again 4 single crochet in gray, changing to brown in the 4th. Then we have an increase in brown, and then 9 single crochet, and then we finish with an increase in the last stitch. I'm gonna give these a pull already, and we change it to gray in the second single crochet of this increase. So the first one we make in brown, second one we change to gray. So now we have a stitch count of 33. In round 9 we start with 5 single crochet in gray, changing to red in the 5th, then we have an increase, and then 10 single crochet, and with the last one we've changed to gray. Then we make an increase. And 3 single crochet. I have a tangled mess here. 1, 2, 3. So the last one goes in the last existing gray one, and we change to brown. And then we make 7 single crochet. Then an increase. And then we finish with 5 single crochet. And in the last and 5th one, we can change again to gray. So now we have a stitch count of 36. And if you want to use safety eyes, you can secure your stitch now, because now would be a good time to insert them. I don't have any, but I'm going to show you on the other bird where I placed them. Also, we can now fasten off the red. So I hope this looks fairly symmetrical for you. It so far so good. Does seem to work for both V and X-shaped stitches. And so the safety eyes go between rounds 4 and 5 with about 6 stitches space in between. So round 4 is the first one that has red here, so it goes between the first and second red one. And on the side, so I placed them between the last 2 red stitches on each side, more or less. I mean, see what looks good also, like here and there. Let me show you. So it's in this upper right corner of the red part on each side. And again, it's not going to be perfect. Here we have a little bit more red on the side than here. So you can insert them and secure them and continue crocheting with me. So once you secured the safety eyes, if you're using any, you can continue with round 10. So we start with 6 single crochet in gray. And then we change to white. So we do the 6 1/2. and then pull the white yarn through the 2 gray loops. And now we work around the gray and brown yarn, holding the end of the white yarn in place. Just giving the gray another pull. There we go. So then we have 12 single crochet in white. And we change back to gray with the last one. And then we have again 6 single crochet in gray. First I should have pulled the gray yarn a bit so it doesn't show through the white stitches. Also the brown one. Just a little tug. And now 6 single crochet in gray. And with the last one, we change to brown. And then we single crochet in the remaining stitches of the round, in the remaining 12 stitches. And again changing to gray in the last stitch. And that's round 10 done. In round 11 we start with 5 single crochet in gray. Changing to white in the last one. And then we have 14 single crochet in white. And then we have again 5 single crochet in gray. Changing to brown, and again we have 12 single crochet in brown. And with the last one we can change to white. And that's the round done. So now we can fasten off the gray and brown yarn, because the rest will be in white only, the rest of the body. And so next we crochet the opening for the tail. So that's where we will later crochet the tail out of. And so we need to make sure that this is centered in the back. So let's see how this goes. By the way, this is how the color change looks for me now. It's definitely better than the previous version, although I didn't manage to keep my tension equal. This one looks much bigger, probably because I'm using the V-stitch, and I'm crocheting more loosely because I'm focused on other things like the setup and that. So it still works though. So I hope the same will be the case for you. So now we need to see, again, based on the tension we have when we crochet, if how many stitches we make before we crochet this opening. So the written pattern says 28, but it might be slightly different for you. So let's see. Let's start with 28 and go from there. Actually, you can pause the video here and make 28 single crochet and hit play once you're done with that. So I made 28 single crochet, and next we will chain 5 and skip 5 stitches for the opening. So here we can check and see if that would be aligned with the center back. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These would be the stitches that we skip. So this is where the tail would be. If it's difficult to visualize, you could also place pins or stitch markers in those stitches. I'm going to use these pins. So this is where the tail would come out of. And then the red marks the front. So if you have eyes placed in, then you can even see it more easily, like here. Should be on the opposite side of the front. So if that's not the case, you can shift it a bit, undo a stitch or two, or crochet one or two extra to make sure that the opening is centered in the back. And then once you've done that, you can go ahead and make 5 chains. And then skip the next 5 stitches. And then we make 3 single crochet, or however many stitches, 1 in each of the stitches you have left in the round, depending on how many you started the round with. So if you made 28, then you should have 3 stitches left. And that's the opening done. So here again you can do a final check, just pulling this out a bit, and then you should be able to see if that's in the right place. So I'm briefly gonna secure my last stitch, because now is a good time to fill the head with Fiberfill and start filling the body. So if you have safety eyes, maybe use smaller portions to make sure you get them in between the backs of the eyes and on each side. In round 13 we start decreasing, so begin with 3 single crochet, and then we have a decrease. So we go in the front loop of the next stitch and the front loop of the next one. Pick up the yarn, pull it through the 2 front loops, and then pick it up and pull it through the 2 remaining loops. And we repeat this 4 more times, 5 times altogether. 3 single crochet, and a decrease in the front loops of the next 2 stitches. So that's 2, now 3 more to go. 3 single crochet and a decrease. And then we make 3 single crochet all the way up to the chains here, or however many stitches you have left, leading to the chains. And then we make 1 single crochet in each of the chains in the back loop of each chain. So we want to keep the front loops open to later crochet the tail out of. So 1 single crochet in each chain. And then we make 1 single crochet, or depending on how many you made here, if you only made 2, you'd have 2 here, or if you made 4, you wouldn't have any here. You want 2 single crochet, like you want to decrease in the last 2 single crochet. That's it. So however many you have before the last 2, that's how many single crochet you make now. And then decrease, single crocheting the last 2 together. So now we have a stitch count of 30. And we can check again the opening if that's in the center back. In round 14 we have again 3 single crochet and a decrease, but this time we do it 6 times in a row without interruption. So 3 single crochet and a decrease. You can actually pause the video here and hit play once it's done. And also keep adding Fiberfill after each round. In round 15, we continue decreasing. So here we have 2 single crochet and a decrease. And we repeat this 6 times all together. So you can again pause the video and hit play once you've done that. Now we're down to a stitch count of 18, and in round 16 we make 1 single crochet and 1 decrease. So you can pause again and complete this 6 times all together until the round is complete. So now we're down to 12 stitches in the round, 1 round to go for the body. I also added more Fiberfill, although we can still add more through the tail opening here. And in round 17 we make 6 decreases in a row. One more. And then we can fasten off. and close the round. I'll need more Fiberfill later, but for now I'm just pushing it towards the center before closing the round. So now we go through the front loop of each of these 6 stitches. First we just pull the yarn in through, unless you're using acrylic yarn, because that breaks very easily, so then you may want to slightly pull it after each stitch. Wool also breaks more easily, but if you're using cotton, then we can just go through all of them and then close them all at once because it won't break. And then we go through the center. And somewhere on the white part where we can weave the end in. Pull that so that the bottom side here is as flat as possible. And then we can weave the end in, trying to follow the stitch pattern. And switching directions a few times. And then because we have this opening here, we can actually take it to the opening and then hide it inside. And I'll also add more Fiberfill now through the opening before we can crochet the tail. So now we can crochet the tail, and for this we need brown and white yarn. We start with the brown and we join it here in this stitch next to the first skipped stitch, so the one that we made the last white single crochet in before making the chains. We go through that one again and join the brown yarn here. So just pulling a loop through and holding the end in place for now. And then we make 1 single crochet in each of the skipped stitches. And next we will crochet in this stitch here on the other side of the 5 skipped stitches that we made the first white single crochet after the 5 chains in. So we go through this one again and make a single crochet here, and we change to white at the same time. So we pull the brown yarn through, and then pull the white yarn through the 2 brown loops. So we continue in white, and here we have the same thing. Like if you want, you can always cut the yarn with each color change. We only have 3 rounds with color changes. The rest will be just in brown. Or you can work the other yarn color into the stitches like I showed you before. So next we crochet in the other side of the 5 chains, and so these loops that you can see here, 1 2 3 4 5, those are the front loops and that we left open to crochet into now. So going in the first one, and the first one might be a bit tricky. Going to pull that up a bit to make it easier. And crocheting around the brown yarn. That's one. This here is the next one. Sorry, I just want to make sure the tension is right. That's 2. 3. 4. And 5. And then the next and last stitch of the round goes here, where into this one where we first joined the yarn. So we go through this one again, and at the same time change to brown. And now we have a round of 12 single crochet. In round 2 we make again 6 single crochet in brown, and with this 6th one we change to white, we have 6 single crochet in white. And we're changing to brown in the last one. So that's round 2 done. In round 3 we start with 2 single crochet, and then we make a decrease. And 2 single crochet. And changing to white. And the last one. Then we have a decrease. And 2 single crochet. And we finish with a decrease. And we change to brown with the decrease. So pulling the brown yarn through the last 2 loops, and then we can fasten the white yarn off. So we can now continue with brown only, and we can hide all of these yarn ends inside the tail. Other than that, the tail doesn't need to be filled with Fiberfill, so I'm just filling the base of it with the yarn ends here. So we're down to a stitch count of 9, and in rounds 4 to 8, so the next 5 rounds we single crochet 1 in each of them. So I just let you go ahead with that. You can pause the video and hit play once you completed 5 rounds of 9 single crochet. So the 5 rounds of 9 single crochet are done now. If you feel like the tail is too floppy, which can happen if you crochet quite loosely, you can fill it a bit. I would say just enough to make it stay in position. I think for most of you it won't be necessary, and so then we can close the round with the we can crochet the last round and close it. So that's round 9, and in round 9 we make 1 single crochet, and 1 decrease, and we repeat this 2 more times. 1 single crochet, and 1 decrease, one single crochet, and 1 decrease. Then we can fasten off. And we close the round the same way we closed the last round of the body. So we go through the front loops, the front loop of each stitch, then pull it and go through the center, and then weave the end in somewhere on the brown part. Following the single crochet stitch pattern as best as possible. And trim the end. So that's the tail done. The shape is a bit funny. This one turned out better. And so here you can see the size difference because I'm crocheting very loosely, but it still seems to work with the color changes. So we can go ahead and crochet the wings now. For the wings we need brown yarn, and they are crocheted in rows. So we first leave a long yarn end for sewing, 12 inches or 30 centimeters should be enough. Then we make a little loop, and we start with 2 chains. Then we make an increase in the second chain. Chain and turn. Now we make 2 increases. One, and 2. Chain and turn. So now we have 4 stitches in the row, and now we have 5 rows of 4 single crochet. So rows 3 to 7 we just make 4 single crochet, and chain and turn. So you can pause the video here and make 4 more rows just like this. Then once you've done the 5 rows of 4 single crochet, we make a single crochet in row 8, then skip 1 stitch and finish the row with 2 single crochet. Chain and turn. Then in row 9 we skip the first stitch and single crochet in the last 2 stitches. Chain and turn. Then in row 10 we single crochet 1 in each stitch, 1 and 2, chain and turn. In row 11 we skip 1 stitch and single crochet in the remaining stitch, chain and turn. And in row 12 we just single crochet in the only stitch of the row. So now we'll crochet all around the wing, starting by making a single crochet in the side of each row. So that will be 12 single crochet all the way to the base of the wing. And the first one goes in the same stitch that we just crocheted in, just more from the side. That's 1. And the next one goes in the side of the next row. So here, 2. Then the next one, here, 3. Four, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then I make the 12th one here in the side of the base chain, and then we make 1 in the base chain on the other side, and now we go all the way back again, making 1 single crochet in the side of each row. So I'm starting here, making another one in the same. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And then we can fasten off. And now we can finish by making an invisible finish. And so I'll actually cheat in another stitch instead, which is not quite the same thing. So we go through the first single crochet here. I believe that was the one single crochet in row 12. Go through here. And now we we go through the back loop of the last single crochet we just made. And this way we have a little sheet stitch here that closes the round we just made. And then we can, on the wrong side of the wing, weave in this end. So I'll just weave it up towards the base where we can then trim it. So I think that's enough. Now I just trim it short so that it will be hidden when I attach the wings. So now you can repeat all of these steps to crochet the other wing. You can find the timestamp in the description box below. Now for the beak, we use brown, and we just leave a long enough yarn end for attaching the beak. Make a little loop, and then chain 2, and then we make a single crochet in the second chain. And that's it, that's the tiny beak done. Then we leave the long end yarn enough to stitch the beak on. And that's it. So now we can assemble our little bird. So if you used safety eyes, then you would place the beak in the center front, in between them as much as possible. So this is just to show you where I placed it with this bird here. With this one, because I will embroider the eyes, I'll do the beak first, so then I can make sure that the eyes are placed on each side. Just, oops, leaving this one here. So just starting with one of the ends, just thread it on the yarn needle. And now I'll just find the center of this red part. So 1, 2, 3, 4, probably here. So between the first 2 red rows. let's see how this works. So I'm trying to find the center, but I'm shifting it slightly to the right. And then I bring the needle through somewhere to the brown part on the back, where I can then weave the end in. But first I'll do the other side so that I can make sure that it's placed correctly. So in the stitch next to it, to the left of it, again stitching through to the brown part. And now I can check that it's centered in the front. So this is where the red part ends. And I think that's looking good. So once you're happy with the placement, you can weave in the yarn ends on the back here. If you used safety eyes, you can skip this next part, so you can go to attach the wings. The timestamp is in the description box. And if you're also embroidering the eyes, you can do that together with me now. I already done one side. You can do both sides together. I just wanted to practice this method first because I haven't done it in a while. If you're just doing one eye at a time, 20 centimeters or 8 inches of black embroidery floss should be enough, and a darning needle or large-eyed sewing needle. The pointy tip is important. And so yeah, if you want to do both eyes together, maybe use 30 centimeters, 12 inches. So we're inserting our needle somewhere where we can later hide the end. So we go in between stitches. We don't want to catch any of the fibers in between stitches so that we can hide the end. And then we stitch through to where we want the eye to go. So I left a little bit of red here on the side. We're going to stitch to the center of the eye. I'll just hold it upside down for this part. So in this case, we want to stitch in between fibers because this way we have more control over where the stitch goes, and it should be roughly the same height as the beak, so roughly in between the first 2 red rows. I'm on the second one here, but yeah, high up on the second one, that should be fine. Now I'm just checking first with the other eye to make sure that it's that the beak will be centered. I think that should be fine. I'll move it a little bit further forward. Okay, so now we pull this through, just leaving a short end here that we can later hide. And so this is now the center point of the eye. So now I'm just making a tiny circle around the center point by picking up a little piece of fiber from the red yarn, pulling that through, and I do that in each corner, so going all around the middle point. Now going up. That was too small. It just broke. ends sideways. So now we made the center point a little bigger. So I'm making now a circle around it, just laying the thread around it and holding it in place. And now I stitch from the inner corner of the eye to the outer corner. And then I pin this loop down that I just made by making a little stitch here, going back to the, well, now to the bottom side. And now pinning the bottom, the loop down at the bottom side, going up. And then stitching it down on the top side as well. Going back to the inner corner, and then we can repeat that as many times as we like, depending on how big we want the eyes to be. So laying a circle around the eye, then stitching from the inner corner to the outer corner. Put my thumb on it so that the circle stays in place, and then we pin the circle down on 4 different corners, so to speak. It's not corners, but you know what I mean. And then once the eye is big enough, you can, with the last pinning down, you can go back to where we started, being careful not to catch any of the brown loops here. Using my pliers to get it out. And then to hide it, we just tie these ends together. Trim them short and insert the hook somewhere nearby. Bring it through to that spot. And then hide the ends. And that's it. So that's the eyes embroidered. So next come the wings. So the base of the wing goes very close to this top gray corner there, and then they go downwards and backwards diagonally, and the tip is, I placed them this way that the tip is a little bit lower than the tail, so the angle is a bit lower, but yeah, you can actually pin them on in any way you like. That's just how I do that. And then I'll just stitch this top part on, and the lower part stays open. So for this, I'll just thread this yarn end on my yarn needle. And the way I attach it, first I go down and then again back up to do the other side. So I find a loop somewhere on the body as close to the wing as possible. Go through there. And then to make this as invisible as possible, I go through the closest stitch from the inside out, and then through the next stitch from the outside in, and then again find the closest loop. So let's go for this one, and I'm trying to make this small, so just picking up a loop. And then I go through the same stitch I just went through from the other direction, from the inside out. And then through the next one from the outside in. And this way I stitch down all the way to this level of the next pin, somewhere here. So you can pause the video and do that in your own time. So now I reached this place and I still want to do the back side. So I'm going back to this top place here, just stitching through the body. And now I'm going in the other direction. So going through the next stitch from the inside out, and through the next one from the outside in. And then I just find the closest, the nearest loop and go through there. And then go through the same stitch, but this time from the inside out, and then through the next one outside in, and find the nearest loop. And this way I stitch all the way down to the next pin. I forgot to mention, once you stitched the top of the wing on, then you weave in the end, of course, and I'm hiding then the last bit under the wings, although it's not necessary, but just in case. So that's the wings attached, And now we just have the legs to do. So you can do the crocheted version if you like. I linked to a video tutorial I did on this separately. That's still exactly the same method that I use, so you can find that in the description box below. And if you want to do the wired leg version, then stick around and do it together with me. So I'm using this 1 millimeter thick craft wire. That's aluminium or aluminum, if I say that correctly. And we're using 30 centimeters or 12 inches. I'm using a little bit more just in case. And so this is very flimsy wire, so I'm using a big yarn needle to help me get it through in the beginning. Now you see my messy toolbox. So with this we can go through, and here in the end, like, I'm just going through a little bit further back, like this is the center where we had the last round, and then I'm going a little bit further back and I'm leaving like 1.5 centimeters or like about half an inch space between the legs. So just getting this wire through. And then I bend them down at the midpoint. So that should be all right. So these are the 2 legs now, and we focus on one of them first. I just bend that out of the way. And now the pliers come in handy. So I have these flat ones. You could also use smaller ones for jewelry making. They're not flat, but still, yeah, even round ones are useful. And since this is very soft wire, you can also bend it with your fingers, but it's just a little bit trickier to make it, you know, to get a sharp bend. So I'm doing this like, I don't measure this time, but if you want to measure, you could measure like 0.6 inches or 1.5 centimeters for the leg, and then bend this wire forward. So this is the leg. This here will form the first toe. For the toe, I'm leaving like 1 centimeter or 0.4 inches. So I'm bending it backwards. And this is now the first toe. Then this is kind of the midpoint of the foot. This is where I bend it all forward again. So 180 degrees again forward. Like this. And then same length, about about 1 centimeter, 0.4 inches, bending backwards again, and that would be the next toe. And at the midpoint, bending forward again. And And then we make a third toe the same length, bending everything back again. And if we have pliers, it's easy to squeeze them together. It's not necessary, just if you like them to be, if you like these toes to be narrower, you can squeeze them a bit. So these are now the forward pointing toes. And then we make one backward pointing toe. So just to make sure that it's on like an extension of the middle toe. And I'm going for the same length, roughly 1 centimeter, 0.4 inches, bending it forward. So this is now the backward pointing toe, and this remaining part here, this I wrap around the leg to just to reinforce the leg. And you can wrap it just once or twice to secure it, or if you prefer, you can wrap it all the way up to the base of the leg. Also squeezing this back toe a bit. And then that's another reason these pliers are handy, because you can use them to hold it so that the toe doesn't disappear while you do the twisting around the leg, because that might happen, because with every twist you're pulling the wire a bit. So now I just use my hands to wrap it around, and preferably more neat than what I'm doing here. It's a little bit tricky with my camera setup, but you can also do it this way, and then once in a while, if you have pliers, you can squeeze them together to make it look a bit neater. Of course, going down all the way to the base. And once it's all wrapped, you can give it another squeeze. And trim off the rest if there's any left, or just bend it so that it doesn't hurt you. So that's one little foot done, and then you can repeat these steps with the other foot. And that's it. The feet are done, so then you can bend them a little bit, like at the halfway point, bend the toes at the halfway point. Just a tiny bit like this. So that's the little robin done. It's quite big actually, and just because I had different tension when crocheting, but the color changes still line up, so that's good news. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of my future crochet tutorials. Thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to see you in the next one. Bye!